attend. Oh, that's right. And thank you, Amy, for recording. Let us know what's going on, what questions you may have as we go through today's sessions. Use your reactions when we ask you something so that we know that you guys are there, that what information we're giving you, you guys are taking it on board. And if you do have any questions, please chime in and we'll be able to try and answer it as much as we can. And yes, this will be recorded, and this recording will be posted on the TOC's webpage under our webinars and recordings. So without further ado, let me go ahead and get through the rest of this administrative piece. For those of you that are not aware, new to TOC, this is just a reminder what our vision is for those that are members of TOC or are familiar with TOC, and notification for those of you that are new to TOC. We believe in this community. Our vision is to continue developing, supporting, and sharing knowledge together across the federal agencies, in addition to our academia and industry partners. And how we do this is through a number of programs we have throughout the year, including our professional development program for our program year, including these that we're going to discuss sessions. We've had a number of other events that we've had throughout the year to continue to allow us to work better together and continue our progress as learning and development professionals through networking, through knowledge sharing, through events, through utilization and sharing of resources throughout our industry, academia, and federal partners. And how we do this within each program year, we have our Discover and Discuss sessions, which is what we have today and what we have in 2 more weeks. Our deep dives, where we do little hands-on workshops. We used to do these in person, and we've shifted them to virtual due to the current environment that we're in right now. And our L&D showcase, where we showcase one of the award winners from last year's award sessions of what programs we have within the federal agencies that really help us give back to our own communities within our own agencies. And then more events that we have throughout the year, such as Graduate School USA is sponsoring one of our sponsored event earlier, and we'll be sponsoring another event. And then we have another event that we listed on our newsletter later in June for federal L&D professionals. And moving on to our biggest event that we have every year, we did have to postpone it this year, and that was our annual conference, TOC 25. And that has moved to August 17th to 19th, and we'll be in Tyson's Corner this year. We are still in the planning stages, so we're still fine-tuning and finalizing a number of things, such as our schedules, our speakers, verifying that they are available for this event, and other events that we're going to have scheduled during those 3 days in Tyson's Corner. Again, as you can see here, same great experience as we continue to finalize that. And we are always looking for volunteers. So if you happen to be available and want to support our effort, please do go to our TOC 25 page right there. There's a button down there if you scroll down the button that says that you want to volunteer. Also on that page, you'll also find another button, and I'm going to actually show you what that page looks like right here. So that's a link to this page. You can register for TOC 25 right here, and as you scroll down to the bottom, we're going to be updating this as well. As you scroll down the bottom, there's a click here to volunteer. We're always looking for people to help us support and put out this wonderful event that we do every year. Any questions so far? I'm seeing nothing in the chat. Okay. So on the 27th, we have Graduate School USA, Heather Katz from there. She'll be providing a discussion using plain language and AI to power effective communication. Again, that's May 27th. You can go to our TOC webpage and reserve RSVP for that event, and you'll get the link for that. It will also be a webinar that will also be recorded. Again, that is open to all as well. And today, what we have is AI and the Kirkpatrick model, enhanced learning and performance evaluation. We have with us today Ms. Vanessa Alzate, who is the CEO of Kirkpatrick Partners, and Kirkpatrick Partners has been a longtime supporter of TOC. And with that, I turn it over to Vanessa.
Great, thank you so much. I am going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. Good morning, everyone. I hope you're having a great day. Good, that turned on, and now I can turn my camera on. Hi, everyone. So thank you all for having me back to talk about this just super important topic, all about how we can leverage the power of artificial intelligence with evaluation. This is a session that I did at TOC last year, and to say that the AI has even gotten better. I get more excited every single day that I use it. As we go through, I even share with some of the updates that we've been making ever since. So if you have not yet introduced yourself, please do introduce yourself in the chat, where you're dialing in from, the agency that you're with, and any questions that you have, please pop that into the chat. And at the end of the session, we will go through and have hopefully a rich discussion. And I want to get us started. By the way, you'll see this QR code throughout. I will also pop this actually into the chat as well, so you can get the link directly. I'll send it in a second. This QR code is our prompt guide for ChatGPT. So when you scan it, you can grab it. It might take about 5 minutes before it gets sent out to you. All right, let's get the party started. All right, so defining artificial intelligence, I want to ensure that we clarify exactly what AI means. And so artificial intelligence means a machine-based system that can, for a given set of human-defined objectives, make predictions, recommendations, or decisions influencing virtual environments. Now, I want to know from you all, if you want to pop this into the chat, what are some ways that you all are using AI within your organization? Or how are you, let's go beyond our organization, right? How are you using AI in your life? So I know some of y'all might not be able to use AI at work just yet. So this is great to hear. Hello to all my friends that have just popped in. Amazing. So where are y'all using it? We've got Gina shares scripting, outlining, and drafting. Do you know when ChatGPT first came out, I went in and I wanted to see how it would do with creating a webinar or like a virtual instructor-led session. I was so not impressed. Cut to 2025, and I'm like eyes blown at just how much better it got just in that short amount of time. And I use it for very similar ways. And since they're not able to use it yet, Joy, she says, GPT for work to help draft letters, outline for lessons and topics. Love it. Brainstorming idea as a thought partner to get me going. Yes, Shannon, that is a great way to use ChatGPT, or I like to call it Chatty. So I feel like we're friends. Sometimes I prompt it, hey, Chatty, how are you today? And I'm always very polite to my AI, never want it to turn on me. But it's a great way to kind of bounce things back and forth. ChatGPT at home for volunteer roles to draft memos and letters. I've also used ChatGPT to help me write emails that might have necessarily needed like a nicer lens to it. Gina shares image generating. Great. So Jason's beta testing Microsoft Copilot to augment tasks. Amazing. Using it on a personal level, to find answers. So it's going to be very interesting how Google and how things change moving into the future when it comes to ChatGPT. It's becoming a much bigger use case to use ChatGPT to find answers as opposed to Googling, which we saw a decline in Google usage with younger, like Gen Z and Gen Alpha. They actually go to TikTok whenever they're looking to find an answer. And so now with ChatGPT, it's really more back first. And so if you'll notice on your Google searches and things like that, it's starting to pull in Gemini as an AI overview from the beginning, which is interesting. Yeah, Jason, the days for Google are numbered. Generative AI. I agree. I'm trying to get into Gemini, not loving it as much. Amazing. Well, thank you so much all for sharing. It's nice to see that you all have a great way to use it. Marcella says she uses AI to help create interactive activities and idea. Yeah, I've done that too with some activities and workshops. Actually, 2 weeks ago on a Friday, totally personal, I took the day to do like a lot of focus and deep work. And I used ChatGPT to help me create a unified mission for my life and my work and my home. And it gave me a whole bunch of questions that I had to prompt and journal. And then together we co-created a mission statement and just it was a really fun exercise to do. So I asked it to actually create it into a worksheet. And I sent it out to my team and said, hey, I just had a really great experience this Friday going through this and helping to align. I needed to feel a little bit refreshed. And this really was helpful for me. And now they have a worksheet to help do for themselves. So it's really great. All right. So funny thing is none of us actually said, well, I use AI every day when I turn on my Waze, which actually Google Maps and Waze and all that is actually using AI. A lot of folks, we have this assumption that AI came in 2022. So I lean on my dear friend, Myra Roldan. She's the owner of Undesto AI. It's a boutique AI agency, and she used to work for AWS in the AI side of things. And she's my go-to person and my thought partner and my partner when it comes to anything we're doing with AI. And she says she still gets stunned from people when she says, "Oh, I've been working with AI for over 12 years." And they're like, "What do you mean? ChatGPT just came out." The fact is, AI really has been here since back in the 1950s. And was the beginning of machine learning, which focuses on the development of algorithms and statistical models that enabled computers to learn from and make predictions based on data. So Netflix, that's another instance of AI. Instacart. I don't know if any of y'all use Instacart to order groceries and things like that as a lifesaver when you have small children and can't get to the grocery store. They are two applications that utilize machine learning through their recommendations based on previous actions or purchases. Now, as we see over the years, interest in AI waxed and waned, and there was even this AI winter that happened back in the 70s and 80s, which was like just 30 years ago, right? Maybe 40 years ago. I think the 90s are 30 years ago, which saw a decrease in funding and interest in AI research due to a perception of overhyping AI. Now, in the 90s, my favorite decade, a reemergence of interest in AI came to be as advancements in the computer and the internet came to be. So what happens with this computer and internet? Well, we started getting it into our homes and it started to make computing and AI more accessible to the average user, which really helped to increase that interest. And that's when they started, again, exploring AI and what it could do. Then we all woke up in 2022 on that November morning to the introduction of ChatGPT. So it was November 20th when it feels like there's days before November 20th, like time before that, and 2022, and then there's just time after, right? The world witnessed a significant shift with the emergence of ChatGPT. This AI tool rapidly gained popularity, changing the conversation around AI. It even reminded me personally during that time of, remember when we all got AOL and dial-up internet and you had to wait until your mom got off the phone in order to get onto the internet, or you would have, times when the line would be busy and you couldn't get on. This was ChatGPT. There were times that you would actually log into ChatGPT and there were too many people on the servers and you had to basically wait your turn until you could get on. Now, what really ChatGPT did was it again made AI more accessible. So this is a conversation that Myra and I have, just recently. I said, it's true. Artificial intelligence has been here for years. So of course you've been working in it for over 12 years. The difference was we didn't have that accessibility of actually using it, playing with it, creating with it, and that's why we have this assumption that it just came out in 2022. Now, in the blink of an eye, the AI was in the conversation, ChatGPT was in the conversation, but the really more significant part of it, and this should say 2023, but January of 2023. ChatGPT had 100 million monthly active users. And that was in just, less than 2 months. In 5 days, they surpassed 1 million users. So it was definitely one of these things to look at. So for some, they say, and Myra and I will talk about this a lot as well, is we're in the age of when the internet started to grow in popularity, and everyone got their like AOL disk and things like that. That is where we are right now with ChatGPT and artificial intelligence. Right. There were times, and I hear a lot of folks that had businesses back then. They said, we're not going to use this computer to send emails. It's never going to be a thing. We're going to wait. And now you sending a piece of mail in the regular U.S. Postal Service mail feels like almost like a little treat. When I go out to my mailbox and I get something that is maybe handwritten or just a card from someone that isn't a bill or something like that. It's like email is the new way of life. So much so actually there's so much junk email that we don't even want to look at it anymore. So now let's look.
Question.
Yes.
So the question back, how are you using AI related to the Kirkpatrick certifications? Or is it something that you're going to talk a little bit later in the session?
Yep, I will chat more about that at the end, for sure. For sure. Thank you. So let's talk about some of these benefits of AI. So first and foremost, increasing productivity and efficiency. So we saw some of that, right? So we're seeing folks that are drafting, outlining, and if you want to pop into the chat, I'd love to hear from you all. And I just want to see I think it was Gina that says she uses it for outlining and drafting and all that. How much time are you seeing that it's saving you to use ChatGPT or Copilot to help you draft and outline? And please, other people, please share kind of before and after. And while y'all are popping in how much it's saving you time, what I will share is there was something that came out recently, and they're looking for a tool to help with instructional design. Something that utilizes artificial intelligence, and it had this line in it that I thought was so great. It's the reason or the business case for looking for a solution to help is because it's so daunting for an instructional designer to just stare at a blank screen and then have to start. I would love to hear from you all about, that first draft, right? It always feels like it's the worst. It's so hard. It's almost so hard to even start on projects because you just have to throw something on the paper, and that feels really hard to do. And so now with artificial intelligence, it helps to your first draft to feel a little bit more polished, which actually makes it a little bit more easier to start than it did in the past. And so here we go. Joy says that NIPR and ChatGPT has saved her hours, especially when she asks it to what resources ChatGPT pulled from. Love it. Gina says tons. Adam says it saves an insane amount of time, especially as I learned how to use ChatGPT more efficiently. Jason says, when I do environmental scanning research, there are objective and subjective tasks. So the generative AI saves him around 80% of the objective tasks. Wow, to populate the scanning hit form. Love it. Gina shared, just this morning, I improved a scenario recently retired staff member created. That's great. It's a big bonus for AI for sure in the scenario development. I'll share. So sitting next to me in this binder, let me just move all of my kids' artwork, is the first version of the next Kirkpatrick book. So I printed it because I like to be old school as I'm going through the developmental edit, and I put it in a binder. However, as I was looking for research to help supplement my arguments, I actually used the tool Perplexity. Is the best tool out there in the free sort of space. Or there is a paid version like ChatGPT, but I didn't ever need to go to the paid version to help me find sources. So I find that ChatGPT not so great with research and pulling actual good sources, but Perplexity, yep, Diana is also a Perplexity fan, is great for doing that research. And that really helped me a lot with the book, as I drafted my arguments, and I drafted my my points, then going through and having conversation with ChatGPT and Perplexity to help pull some additional themes out for me that I was maybe missing on, or I was going a little, I didn't fully complete, or just helping with finding the research to back my arguments. It's saved me so, so, so much time, which meant I actually hit my deadline, and it was a very aggressive deadline. Another benefit, reducing completion time and allowing for more time to focus on building relationships. So Adam, I'm sure you remember from the Bronze program and anyone else that has gone through the Kirkpatrick program, one of the big things that we talk about is this need and the importance of prioritizing building relationships. And however, one of the challenges that we get or the objections is I don't have a lot of time because I'm doing a lot of these other more administrative things. We're building content, we're doing all of these things. Well, now that we have these AI automations and these AI agents and all of these things to help build up, to help save on some of that time, we can focus on building relationships, the things that AI just can't do. Although I heard a really weird thing this morning that eventually people are going to get into relationships with AI. So that I think that's going to be a little out there. But for the purposes of this conversation, that is something that ChatGPT cannot do. The next is personalization. So I will say this, personalization has been a hot topic, I'm sure for you all as well, like the learning space of how do we actually personalize learning without having to create, your organizations are massive. Imagine having to create a personalized journey for every single employee. With ChatGPT or AI, I should say, we don't have that challenge as much. And so now personalization, which years ago felt like a maybe, a maybe to use or maybe to do, or if we have time or if we have budget, it's actually a requirement. We expect personalization, right? Like I mentioned before, Netflix, Instacart, those are two things that when we open it up, it's personalized for us. We open up our Facebook, our Instagram. They're now showing us a more interest-based algorithm. So our interest-based graph. It's personalized to us and what we are looking for. This is what our employees are looking for out of their learning experience as well. They don't want to open up your learning management system of thousands of courses and say, this is what I need to do next, or I'm interested in this, what should I take? And the onus is really on them to dig and figure out which is the right course. With AI and with this, the ability to automate and recommend and things like that, you're now going to be in a place with the right tools to be able to personalize the learning experience, the learning journey, to then also personalize the career path for each of your employees, which is really cool. Improve workflows with task automation, so much time savings there, and helping to build a culture of evaluation. One of the reasons I believe, we'll go into the model in a minute, but that the higher levels are harder to reach is because there is no easy button when it comes to how do we measure those things. Level 1, we can do a survey, and there is a survey monkey forms. Your learning management system has a survey function, right? You put the questions in, you send it out, it collects the data, it analyzes it for you and produces a report. Level 2, you have a learning management system that will probably do the same thing. Level 3 is when it starts to get a little more complicated and tricky, so we tend to back away from it, right? And I think that we are now in a place where Level 3 is closer than ever before. And if you've gone through our programs or you've chatted with us, that Level 4 is actually the easiest, to measure the organizational impact. It's actually Level 3 that's the hardest to achieve. And once we can achieve Level 3, that unlocks all of the levels, which is really cool. So let's talk a little bit quickly about the Kirkpatrick model. So level 1 is the degree to which participants find the training or experience favorable, engaging, and relevant to their jobs. Level 2 is the degree to which participants acquire the intended knowledge, skills, attitude, confidence, and commitment based on their participation in the training. Level 3 behavior is the degree to which participants apply what they learned during the training when they're back on the job. And then level 4 results, which is the degree to which targeted program outcomes occur and contribute to the organization's highest level results. So let's break each of them bit by bit. So level one reaction, this is your ability to personalize and improve your level one reaction surveys and things like that. So you can actually utilize and prompt ChatGPT or Copilot to help you create surveys that have the ability to offer personalized questions based on how the participant is answering their survey questions. So actually, this is a pretty cool example. So last year, Wendy Kirkpatrick, she was telling me that she received an email from a popular online consignment and thrift store. She was a previous user, purchaser, customer, that's the word I was looking for. And they were doing a pulse check on their customers, And so she said that the survey, when she started answering the questions, she could tell. So it used an AI chatbot to gather the data. She could tell it was an AI, right? And it was responding based on how she responded, but it still felt so personalized because it was actually listening to her feedback and adjusting the follow-up questions that she gave more feedback. And I know that survey fatigue is a huge challenge we all face. And survey fatigue is not just about sending too many surveys. It's also about too long of surveys, not asking the right questions, asking questions that maybe there's other ways to gather that data, so it just maybe feels repetitive, and also not closing the loop with those that are providing their feedback, and saying how you're using their feedback or how it's led to improvements in your organization and your program and things like that. But she felt like because the survey with experience was a little more personal and she was having like a conversation with someone else, she was more open to share more of her experience and hopefully help them improve. Now, the survey honestly just took a few minutes of her time, but the beauty of the survey and the takeaway here is that the personalization behind the questions led to more thoughtful responses. And she shared, and I think this is a pretty big compliment for the organization based on who she is, it felt better than the average survey. Now, additionally, one of the things that at level one, AI can support you with is in leveraging a sentiment analysis tool to analyze your employee sentiment on a program or initiative or their overall performance in the organization. And really, the beauty of feedback is actually in the richness of your data is not going to be in your quantitative and it's not going to be in your Likert scale. It's going to be in your qualitative data, right? Those open-ended questions. And that is where you're going to find a lot of themes, a lot of insights, a lot of stories that are going to tell you what's working, what's not, how are folks applying it to help inform future design, right? And long time ago, it was, challenging and took a lot of time to go through all of that qualitative data. But now you can utilize AI to support you with that analysis. Now, level two learning, I just want to pop up in the chat. Heather asked, with such personalization, wouldn't it be hard to analyze the data for standard metrics? So no, because the way that the algorithm is built in the back end, that's where you can actually tie back, the questions are, yes, personalized, but not to a point where it's detracting from the standardization. It may just be pulling in, can you tell me more about that experience or based on your experience with that? So there's still standardization built on the back end, so then we're able to actually analyze, but it's giving the more qualitative insight to be able to personalize the experience like you would with a friend, a colleague, a journalist, or something like that. Thanks, Heather. And we could have a whole conversation about rolling things up and standardization. That might be a good future conversation. But level two learning. So this is where you can personalize the actual learning experience with AI. So this is where, you can use your AI for content personalization and assessment creation. So earlier, I think, was it Gina again that shared that she had updated a scenario based based on, a retired staff member's experience, right? This is one of the most amazing use cases. So, if we remember level two learning and some of the challenges I think of level two learning is we select the wrong assessment tool to measure the learning. So, for example, if I am putting employees through a crucial conversation course, right? I'm sure we all have them in our manager course, leadership development, and things like that. And a multiple choice assessment is not really the right choice to assess learning in that scenario. Why? The best way to assess learning in these more soft skills and things like that is through role plays and scenarios and putting the person through a real world experience. And that will support you in deciding, did they actually meet the rubric in order to then pass the course and say that yes, they've learned these the intended knowledge, skills, attitude that we were looking for, and we feel more confident that they're going to apply the appropriate behaviors on the job. And so there are AI tools that can support with role play assessments and things like that. These tools are popping up through your learning management systems and ad hoc tools and things like that. Again, with that content personalization. So y'all remember when we were younger, those choose your own adventure books? This gives that same sort of ability more at scale than we could have done in the past. As a previous e-learning developer, I've created for one customer about 600 e-learns in my career. And one of the things that we would love to do is create these choose your own adventures. However, we were limited, right? With the certain number of options, especially role play and things like that. And it never felt perfectly true to life. And we could never really follow too many paths. With AI, you have the ability to create content to really put someone in a scenario and ask and have them make more decisions to then assess them through that path. So it's a really cool thing that we can utilize now. Again, you're formulating your knowledge check questions and other assessments. And like I just mentioned, utilizing role play simulators to replicate real world environments and situations. We have too many areas of our world where we don't want to have someone go from a classroom to the job without having role plays and simulations and things like that in the middle. And that's where AI is really shining right now, is being able to provide folks more with that real world environment. Now, I said we're closer than ever before with level 3, and I believe this to be true. So level 3 behavior is my favorite level because this is where we're really helping someone become more efficient, better at their role, and they're becoming more productive. They're starting to see the benefit of all the learning that they went through. So AI can really support in a variety of ways, but specifically with your required drivers. Now, for those of you that may not be familiar with that language, what required drivers are in the Kirkpatrick world? It's these performance support tools that we deploy in order to help someone in the performance environment. This will look different based on the content, but it could be a job aid, it could be a checklist, it could be an app on your phone that you point your camera at, and it's going to give you some information about the product that's in front of you. It's coaching, it's mentoring, it's self-monitoring reports, all of these things. So these required drivers are really what helps us solidify the learning. We know we can't put someone through one training and expect them to transfer that learning to behavior. You need to get the reps in and you need the support in the moment. Going back to the crucial conversation example I shared earlier. I know what I just said about role plays. However, especially in a crucial conversation, there is never going to be a role play environment. Maybe I shouldn't say never, considering AI. There's never going to be a role play scenario. It's going to be truly, truly true to life. And I'm sure we've all dealt with this, and whether it's a work environment, a personal environment, right? You have to give feedback to someone. You have to have a tough conversation with someone, and you have a physical reaction, right? I mean, I know I do. I love giving people, some bad news or feedback and things like that. I see feedback as a gift, but I know that not everybody does. So, there's a physical reaction I have. I get a little bit nervous. My heart rate might increase, right? I start to feel a little bit of anxiety, little butterflies in my stomach, right? Might stutter on some of my words. It's hard to replicate that when you're in a role play environment. And so knowing that doesn't mean you don't stop having the role play. It means you need to provide an additional support to ensure that the person remembers what it is that they learned and activates on it, right? So it might be a quick card to say, hey, you're going into a crucial conversation. Remember to use this format in order to provide the feedback. Or a coach or a mentor that you reach out to and you say, okay, I'm about to have this conversation, or I just had it. Can we just download on it? So I feel a little bit more comfortable moving forward, or I feel, there's some opportunities for improvement. Can you help provide me with that feedback? And so that is some ways. So those are some required drivers. So the use of ongoing simulations is one key performance support tools. Again, we're only going to get a certain amount of reps when you're in the learning environment. You may need to supplement out in the work world on the job, right? They can't live in the training environment forever. They need to get back into work. So providing opportunities to do continue ongoing simulations, or using it as, maybe a manager sees that someone still needs some additional support and guidance. They're not going to go back through the training. They can use these additional simulations, maybe be assigned to them through their learning management system, to be able to get that ongoing support that they might need. Personalized recommendations for additional learning. Reminders for managers for one-on-one touch bases. We know the make or break for folks transferring learning to behavior is manager support. It's crucial, it's needed. And so one of the things that we need our managers to support on is having these conversations. Now, a recommendation we have are one-on-one touch bases. And so thinking about how can we make that easier on the manager? They have so much on their plate. We can't ask them to remember to have, this one-on-one conversation about this training that they took. So automating your reminders to that manager and saying, hey, it's been 30 days since your employee went through this training program. Here's 2 questions that we'd like for you to ask at your next one-on-one. And can you just send us back that data? So that's one way that you can utilize AI. Also formulating performance plans and the utilization of virtual mentors or coaches. Now, that is where I think we have a lot of really cool opportunities still. If you had asked me this a year ago, I would have said no. I think AI, I thought AI, like people like Synthesia as an organization that creates those AI avatars, I couldn't get behind them for a minute. Maybe that's the moral, the repeating pattern here. I felt like their eyes blinked very slowly, and I knew I was having a conversation with AI. And now there are AI avatars out there that are scarily human-like. Even my friend Myra that I was telling you all about, she actually has a digital twin that, I mean, obviously you could tell, but it's really close to how she speaks, her mannerisms. It can actually hold a conversation with you, which is pretty creepy at times. And so being able to supplement doesn't mean that you ever offload and there's no more peer-to-peer coaching and human-to-human coaching. But what you use AI for is a way to supplement, because we know that people have a lot on their plates. often in peer-to-peer coaching situations, it's an additional duty for someone that they're taking on along with their regular job. So we want to be cognizant of the time, but we also know that the coachee needs the coach. So it gives that support. And one more that isn't here, it's a tool that I've just checked out. You know, if you are familiar with the Kirkpatrick model, you know that we believe that, especially at level 3, is the importance of triangulating your data. So not just relying on a manager survey or one survey, right? We need to get to the source of truth of what's actually happening in the performance environment to know if behavior is being transferred to learning is being transferred to behavior. So we use surveys, interviews, and focus groups. We use observations. Observations take time. It takes another human to actually sit and watch. Well, there are now tools that leverage AI to do the observation. So how does this work? So the tool you can upload a recording, or you can maybe set up like if you're in a classroom, for the recording to the person to be recorded as they're performing their work, and then it gets uploaded into this specific platform that I'm talking about. And now I have, as the backend admin, have said, okay, I want you to look for these things, and I want you to tag. They're positive and negative things, right? I want you to tag every single time this happens in the recording. So what you start to see are these different chiclets on the timestamp of the recording. And so now the manager can come in and take a look at the recording and say, okay, I don't have to watch 3 hours of game tape, right? I'm going to go specifically to these highlighted chiclets to say, okay, let me take a look and more and confirm what the AI saw, but also now I can provide feedback. And so instead of watching, 3 hours, I'm watching maybe 30 minutes. And it really does take that observation time and cut it down in half. It also provides feedback to the end user from the AI side. So they don't even have to necessarily always wait for a manager or a coach to review the observation. They are able to get their own feedback in that real time. And so I think all of these different ways are just opening up the possibilities when it comes to level 3 in behavior. Going back to that, when it comes to the focus groups and interviews, it's actually something that I'm working right now with the DoD. We're doing some surveys to measure the impact of their coaching program. And what we're using are qualitative interviews. So we're sitting down, it feels like we're like Sherlock Holmes, and we're trying to figure out what the impact is on the organization of this coaching program. And we're leveraging AI to now go through the transcript, highlight key moments, and then help map out the ripple effects because of these key moments and these key impacts. And it's really decreasing the amount of time when it comes to performing an impact study. Whereas before, it may take 6 months to really understand the impact of something and do all of the analysis. We're now doing them in, 2 to 4 weeks, depending on access to other humans. So we're in a really, really amazing time when it comes to AI and behavior. And then we've got level 4 results. So here is where you can really utilize AI when it comes to the insights and visualizing data. So creating dashboards of your evaluation results, right? Analyzing the results using AI, but also not just analyzing the results, having the opportunity to say, okay, I have this data, what do I do now? What are the recommendations? What can I turn up? What do I need to go in and tweak and fix, right? Because that's the worst part is sometimes we get these surveys and we get this data, these level 1, these level 2 results, and we're like, okay, great, I have this information, but what do I do with it, right? Now AI can help provide you with okay, this is what you do with this information. Again, developing those visual dashboards and utilizing the results, then curate adjustments to your content. And so we've got a lot of really cool opportunities when it comes to level 4 and providing your insights in a way that your stakeholder is going to resonate with. Now, this is a lot of like, here's all the things that we can do, but there are considerations I want to briefly talk about when it comes to AI. And so there are six. First is inclusive design. So while AI is still truly in its infancy stages at this time, the rate, again, like I mentioned, it's evolving, feels it's the speed of light. If Vanessa says something this year, next year I'm probably going to say something different because the AI got better. I think that's the theme. AI does, give us the opportunity to create images, videos. It actually even clones voices. That one's freaky. I've done it, and it's spot on. With just truly a few descriptive words. And now, with the rise in interest and popularity of AI, it feels as though every technology or platform is adding AI to its features. And so, what we want to do is understand that when we're crafting the prompts, we want to ensure that our prompts is explicitly asking for diverse and inclusive content. Sometimes it will pull from the same sources. Sometimes it will pull from the same sort of group of sources. We really want to make sure, especially when we're writing books, we're making changes, we're potentially making changes to policy, we're making changes to our processes. We want to make sure we have all of our bases covered and we're looking at with the broadest lens. And so crafting your prompts properly is going to be key there. Along with that, we want to ensure we're looking at mitigating bias. Now, just as humans have bias, so does AI. And AI relies on what is out there on the internet as of a specific date and what data someone puts into it. The risk of bias is truly great with AI. And especially when we look at, you can visually see this when you look at images and things like that. We can see bodies being pretty much the same, skin tone and things like that. There is a bias in AI. And so these are things that we need to use our human lens to adjust for when we're prompting, we're refining. Now, if our own bias is not addressed, it can absolutely become part of the AI tool that's being utilized. So the more that we allow bias to slip in, the more that the AI is learning and it includes it in our design. So I want to give you an example. Last year, KP distributed a survey to a wide population in an international membership organization. Our members ranged from 22 that we were interviewing, from 22 to 102. Now, due to constraints with resources, the main communication method for the survey was email coupled with a few social media posts on Facebook. Now, remember, our membership that we're looking at is 22 to 102. Okay. Now, when the survey started to come in, we noticed that it came from a more seasoned demographic as well as one specific area of the United States. And the survey was sent to, I think it was like 100,000 people, and we got 2,400 responses. And when the survey was designed, it was designed with a lot of qualitative questions. So we had a lot of data to sift through. Luckily, we used MaxQDA to help us review, tag, and summarize the qualitative data. So that part was great. However, when we got the MaxQDA report back, it came back super biased. And it pulled a couple of phrases and words said in just 3 of the 2,400 surveys and made it the sentiment appear as though most of the members felt this way. And when it actually, from our own lens, like we went through and we also did our own scan, wasn't actually the truth. If we did not intervene and say, okay, let's take a quick look at the surveys and do our own scan, we would have changed policy for this organization or recommended policy changes for this organization that would have completely changed its trajectory because of 3 people. 3 people in the same age demographic, and it happened to be in the same region. And so when we start to look at survey deployment and taking in feedback and analyzing this data, it is very easy for us to send things out and not really think about certain, deployment strategy for communications and all of that. We've got to do our own bias. We've got to check our own bias. The communications team on that staff favored Facebook. They thought all of that demographic of their membership, the only way that they really got their, they said, those alums, they're all on Facebook. I can say, we had a lot of data supporting that the younger generations were not on Facebook. They were on Instagram. So they weren't even seeing the survey. And we also knew that they're not checking email because, like I mentioned earlier, email has turned into junk. They would have preferred receiving it via a text message. There's all of these ways that bias starts to creep in. So we just need to be aware of it. The third, and I know this is top of mind for all of y'all, is, yes.
On the last slide, we have a question from Heather about your internal scan. Did you do the internal scan because the data wasn't what you expected, or would you have done it either way?
Great question, Heather. So we would have done it either way. And when we were reading it, it was so alarming what came back that we were like, something has to be wrong. So it flagged us to definitely check, but we would have done it either way, just a quick scan. And that's what I always recommend when it comes to artificial intelligence is we'll talk about it in a few, a human in the loop. Okay, so data security. Okay, so this is the big one. And I know that this is a huge point of concern for many people in organizations, and rightfully so. There is a lot of misuse of data and a lot of slips that are happening. And the things that Myra shares with me in her consultations that she's having with organizations that are leveraging AI, it can be kind of scary. However, this should not be a deterrent. We just have to figure out ways and have the checks and balances to make sure that we're properly utilizing data. So we should certainly be on alert when it comes to what we're using, what we're putting in. So ensuring that we're not utilizing personal identifying information, confidential information, and trade secrets, especially if you're on the free version of ChatGPT. So anything like that, anything personal, anything private should not be put through those open AI sources. Another thing is, identifying what solutions meet the needs of the organization's security policies and how it can integrate into the work. So one of the questions asking vendors that are coming to you that say, hey, we're utilizing this AI tool. We're utilizing AI in our tool is understanding where is that data being stored? How is it being stored? Is it being used to train other models, or is it private and things like that? So really in being able to communicate how learner data is being stored is crucial for vendors to be able to provide, and crucial for them to inform you as well, right? Because your employees are not going to go to your vendor and say, how are you using my learner data, right? They're going to go to you and saying, I see that AI is part of this solution, this tool. How is my data being protected? And so you've got to make sure that you have the language and the understanding from your vendor of how everything is being protected. And then transparency, right? When there are so many that are relying on AI to create content, there's been many who look at content and wonder whether especially on social media and on LinkedIn, right? Whether the author wrote it or if ChatGPT did. And now for some people, it's like this fun game. So what we want to do, what we recommend is clearly communicate how and when generative AI has been used to create or supplement content. And this is something when I was speaking with my publisher, that they're integrating into their author agreements and into their processes, right? When it comes to books and things like that, because many authors are using AI to support them in the development and having a disclaimer and things like that. There's even disclaimers when it comes to images that are being generated that are being put into training courses and things like that. So really ensuring they're being transparent about how and when AI is being utilized. For an example, as a university that's using it, Brown University Library has guidelines on how AI should be cited and attributed in academic writing. So I think that's pretty cool to see. Our recommendation when it comes to synthesizing and analyzing data, if you are utilizing AI, it's important that when you're writing your report that you provide that in the summary, letting folks know that artificial intelligence was used to help synthesize and analyze that data. Which then brings us to being the human in the loop. I love, I cannot tell you how much I love AI right now. It's truly elevated my productivity. There are amazing results, but a human always has to review, verify, and amend information, right? So you can't just take something and plop it and say, done. You still need to go in. And that's what I often find with the things that are returned back to me. It's a great starting point, but we need to, still work with it and change it. And, often when you have not trained your AI in your voice, it doesn't always sound like you. Although when you work with it enough, it's actually quite scary. I was on a call with someone that said that they were going to be responding to a SIBR, and they have done so much work over the years with his AI, that it actually returns the technical proposal in about 2 hours. And he's like, I actually feel like I cheated a little bit, and I feel like I'm not using my brain anymore because I had trained it with so much stuff of my own that it sounds like me. It puts it together just, well, as I would have done. And so I kind of want to get back into the work again so I can, still utilize that part of my brain. One of the things that I can say when it comes to the Kirkpatrick model in AI, 9 times out of 10, if you ask AI about the Kirkpatrick model, it will be wrong. It will not pull our newest definitions. It won't pull, the newest graphics, and things like that. And so there was even actually in the early days of ChatGPT, Wendy was on LinkedIn and she saw that someone went into ChatGPT and asked about the Kirkpatrick model, and it inverted levels 1 and 2. So level 1 became learning and level 2 became reaction. And so while I know that there is always fear that AI will take jobs and things like that, there is so many use cases out there for the need for a human to still be involved and be in the loop, that it's actually just a chance for us to elevate our roles and do more of the things that are, the strategy and the visioning and the working with stakeholders, and become more of a consultant and being less of a doer. So we're actually now in a great time in learning and development to shift from learning and development to learning and performance. I just want to pop into the chat real quick. Oh, thanks, Heather. She was just laughing. Okay, let's go to my last consideration, and that's responsible AI. Again, we want to make sure that using AI, we're respecting privacy, we're ensuring fairness, we're maintaining accuracy, and we're supporting genuine growth and development. But we want to, again, use it responsibly. So we want to play around with it. Definitely want to make sure if you cannot use it at work, are there some ways that you can do things to just see what the possibilities are in your own personal life? So one thing that I have not tried, but I've heard other people try, is they open up ChatGPT and they say, hey, Chatty, I have eggs, milk, a flour tortilla, an eggplant, and some breadcrumbs in my refrigerator. What can I make for dinner? And it will come up with the recipe for you, right? And so looking at things like that to just play around with AI and just try it are a great way to make sure that we're starting to use it and we're experimenting with it, but we're not diving so far in and irresponsibly using it, right? We want to make sure that we're having conversations with our IT, with our security departments and things like that about what are the policies and what are my guardrails? But I do believe in the next year or so, there's going to be a lot more AI opening up for you all. So the future of learning and performance. So at Kirkpatrick Partners, we'll share with folks, we believe that it's powered by AI and by Kirkpatrick. Measurement and evaluation, we all know the ADDIE model, right? The E is at the end. Everyone assumes that evaluation is at the end of it. But the fact is, evaluation is at the beginning. And if we're not evaluating the decisions that we make, the programs that we have, the initiatives that we decide to move forward with, then how do we know that we're contributing to higher level results or to organizational effectiveness, right? Or efficiency? It is so important and crucial for us to be measuring the work that we do. And now we have ways to measure utilizing AI that bring us closer than ever before on the continuum from learning and development, which was more of an order taker mentality, being focused more on levels 1 and 2, and then shifting towards learning and performance, where we're being that business partner, we're being a consultant, and we're focusing on level 3 and level 4 in that strategy and things like that. This is where we can spend the time to build true, authentic relationships with our, stakeholders and with our team, because we're doing less of that administrative tasks and more of the higher level work. So as a recap, I just want to recap where we can use the AI and the Kirkpatrick model. So level 1 reaction is, improving your surveys. Level 2 learning, personalizing your learning experiences and tailoring your content delivery. Level 3 behavior is facilitating the application of new skills on the job. And then level 4 results is analyzing big data to measure the impact of training programs and business outcomes. And then remember your 6 essentials. Remember inclusive design, mitigating bias, data security, transparency, always have a human in the loop, and remember to responsibly use AI. Maybe we should say AI responsibly. So what's next? We're of course here to support you. If you want to open up to any additional questions you might have, our email is there, our website. We've got the Kirkpatrick podcast where we have at least 2, and I think maybe a 3rd one coming up soon, on all about AI, and that's available on the videos on YouTube, but we're also available on Shopify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you grab your podcasts. We've got our ChatGPT prompting guide there for you all. And we had a question about AI and the Kirkpatrick certification. So we have a Kirkpatrick certification that is being launched called the Evaluation AI Specialist. Myra and I co-created it together to actually now leverage evaluation tools AI in the development of evaluation tools, but also in the analysis of data being gathered. And utilizing our custom GPT. So that information will be going out on our social media very soon. We are looking at a July date for that certification program to be rolled out. So with that, any questions? Oh, Claire says she asked ChatGPT what's for dinner when her brain can't give me the info. I love it. Awesome. Any questions I can answer for anyone? Thanks.
Vanessa, I want to thank you so much for doing this for us. And again, we have about 54 people in the room today. If any of you do have a question, if you want to unmute, please raise your hand. And you can unmute and ask a question just to prevent everyone from talking over each other. Or if you feel more comfortable, please go ahead and throw in chat your question. And yes, so the slides won't be available for download. What we will have is this video has been recorded, the session has been recorded, and it will be posted on TOC's webpage.
I do have a question. Forgive me, I wasn't sure if I could just speak.
Yes, Dina, go ahead.
Thank you. So I've been teaching a free AI class to the members of our church. We have a free IT ministry there. And of course, we have some members that are, ex-federal employees, some engineers, analysts, some retired folks, a lot of different folks. But one of the questions the engineer asks me all the time is, how does he phrase it? He says, if I do a search and I find what I need and I copy and paste it into my report, one of the things I tell them is I talk to them about literally going to go source that information. I say, go into Google, go look around and see if that data is correct. It could be an error. And I said, when you find the source it. I said, don't ever just copy something because it doesn't belong to you. And he said, that's the question. Who owns the stuff that I get out of AI?
Yeah, so that's a big back and forth. And I know there's still not 100% clarification on it if ChatGPT or you own it. So what Myra and I have been advising folks on is to source or utilizing AI, but do not assume, because I think that I wouldn't be surprised if it flips at some point, that you might not necessarily own it. At the very least, I think that what will happen is you'll have to source, just like you do with anything else, that ChatGPT or whatever AI. I just use
Okay.
ChatGPT as the brand name. Yeah.
Okay.
And then the other, you actually just brought up something for me, and now I just forgot as a reminder. Oh, something that happened 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and I did notice this. We have the models are always changing, and they're always trying to improve. One of the things that happened a few weeks ago is that the model became too agreeable. So people were putting crazy things in there, and it's like, ChatGPT, do you think that this is a good idea? And it's like, yes, that's a great idea when it's, awful. And so really, I love that what you said to the person in your program was go out and look, right?
Yeah.
Because we want to make these models are not perfect, like what happens in software, right? They make a fix here, it breaks something here. The same thing happens with AI. It's not perfect. And what I've actually seen in my own work is it starts to like hallucinate and things like that. So we can't solely rely on it. We still have to do our due diligence, just like we did before.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Of course. Adam.
Yeah, thanks, Vanessa. I was just going to say something that I've done with, like I said, I use ChatGPT and everything, is ask it to your point about with the data and how it uses it, and even talking about like large language models and targeted search history, is thinking about AGI with artificial general intelligence, and that's basically where it is, and then going to ANI. And then to AHI eventually is asking it if it wants to maintain like a symbiotic relationship to basically, you provide feedback to it, it provides feedback to you. And it's ironic, but it definitely has helped my results and refining them. So it was just, I didn't know if that was something that you've seen in other areas. And then another
I
question.
hadn't used it that way, but I appreciate you sharing that because I think that's a great, I love how you phrase it, a symbiotic relationship, but it's so true. We have to sort of challenge on both sides.
Yes. Yeah. No, thank you. I appreciate it. It's always good to have a sanity check. And then the other thing that I was thinking of, being Kirkpatrick certified is looking at the level 4 and, the whole ADDIE principle, potentially loading like a corporation or a different entity's mission and vision and their value statements and what is their overall business objective. And so as you're developing, the specific training need and ensuring utilizing AI, that like as you're developing your terminal objectives or as you're developing your enabling objectives to go through and have AI kind of keep that in the back of your mind so that you're literally building in the level 4 through every single step of the way.
I love that. I just wrote that down. I haven't used it, AI in that sort of context. What I will say is that we did just build a new program called Performance Designer. I don't know if you've seen that yet. It's our instructional design program, where we take the Kirkpatrick model, we take instructional design and ADDIE, and we use Kirkpatrick to enable it, right? So that we're starting with the level 4, designing programs that build in the metrics and the measurements from the beginning. So you're able to gather that data. So, you remember, I'm sure, we talk about the importance of formative evaluation. It's hard to decide at the end of the program after everything's been said and done, like, oh, I want to do this formative assessment. So you've got to go back and rebuild, but designing for that from the beginning. And then you're setting up those metrics and the measurements. Everything actually works choreographed together. Has been one of our new things as well. So I appreciate you sharing that. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Unfortunately, I might be one of those employees that's getting riffs. So I've been really taking AI to heart and kind of thinking outside the box on how to use it and how to get better going forward. So I just figured I would
I'm sorry
share.
to hear that, but with your spark, I'm sure you're going to figure out how to leverage AI in a future role for sure.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Of course.
Cannot see any more hands up, and I'm not seeing any more question chat. If you do have questions that you can't think of right off the top of your head right now, but it pops into your head sometime between now and later, please shoot us an email and we'll reach out to Vanessa to see if she has an answer. She's able to answer that question or point us in the right direction to get us an answer. But with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. As I said, this is recorded, so you'll be able to see this and I'll show you where that you can find this from our TOC's webpage. And let me bring the screen up. So as a quick reminder, the next event that we have coming up is on May 27th, using plain language and AI to power effective communication. And this is by one of our partners, Graduate School USA, and Heather Capps will be our facilitator for that session. And one of the things I wanted to show you, as I just said a little bit ago, there we go, the TOC webpage. As soon as it finishes loading. From our webpage, you have the ability to look at our most recent newsletter, and that can also show you what else we have moving forward. It'll give you some more information on TOC 25, as well as the next events that we have coming up. So one of the key things that we also have coming up with June, as Adam mentioned, he may be one of the employees that may be ripped. We do have an event coming up hosted by UMGC on Career Expo for former federal sector employees. So if you happen to be in that boat, this is a great opportunity for you to go network, socialize, and get some more information on what else is out there and how else you can continue to move forward. Please do keep an eye on what we are doing within TOC because of a lot of changes. We are an all volunteer organization. So if you do have time that you want to spend, if you do want to join the TOC community or join the TOC volunteers and help us continue to push out great content for our community, that would be fabulous. All you gotta do is just go to our webpage. Our homepage, again, takes a little bit of time to load sometimes. And there's an area where you can go ahead and submit a volunteer request. And we would be so appreciative. As you've noticed, a lot of things within the federal sphere has changed throughout the past couple of years. So you can go over here to TOC Community and select Get Involved right there. Okay. And that'll bring you to the page to really join us and help us continue to move the community forward as we adjust with all of the changes that are going on. And I want to thank all of you for joining today and keep an eye out for more things to come. Are there any questions for me, TOC, or for Vanessa? Thank you, Linnea. I appreciate that. Putting that in the chat. Awesome. All right. Thank you so much. And Amy, you can go ahead and stop the recording.